I spent years preserving a set of observations that unsettled even my most seasoned colleagues. They were not dramatic outbursts, nor violent spirals of madness, but silent inner shifts occurring inside individuals commonly dismissed as gentle, compliant, and endlessly forgiving. These souls walked through life carrying unseen burdens while offering warmth to people who mistook kindness for fragility. Their humility concealed an intricate intelligence that most never recognized. In my Zurich practice, such individuals arrived with fatigue etched into their posture, voices softened by years of swallowing truths, and eyes that seemed to hold entire histories behind a single glance. They often believed themselves broken. They insisted that their exhaustion came from personal inadequacy, that their distress resulted from being too emotional, too receptive, or too considerate. Yet as I listened, I realized something astonishing. Beneath their self-blame lived an extraordinary perceptual system operating with remarkable precision. These individuals absorbed subtle details most minds filtered out. They noticed tonal shifts, behavioral inconsistencies, hesitation patterns, micro-aggressions, and contradictions others missed entirely. They carried mental notes, quietly, meticulously, about those who wounded them, not out of bitterness, but as if their psyche cataloged human behavior to understand its architecture. While others overlooked emotional inconsistencies, these individuals registered every one of them with uncanny accuracy. For decades, I documented how they recognized deceit before evidence appeared, sensed manipulation without needing explanations, and detected betrayal long before confessions surfaced. Yet instead of trusting their insight, they had been conditioned to doubt themselves. Every dismissive remark, every accusation of being too sensitive, every attempt to minimize their perceptions served one purpose: to make them distrust the very gifts that made them exceptional. As I continued recording case after case, a pattern emerged. These individuals were not frail victims wandering through chaos. They were sophisticated emotional analysts who understood human behavior more deeply than those who attempted to control them. Their silence did not stem from weakness. It came from overwhelming awareness. They perceived more than they knew how to express, and because society seldom validated such insight, they learned to hide it even from themselves. I began to see that what others labeled fragility was, in reality, an advanced internal system gathering enormous amounts of psychological data. Their hearts felt every vibration, their minds processed every fragment, and their bodies reacted to shifts others remained blind to. This combination produced a level of emotional intelligence so refined that it challenged conventional explanations of intuition. Over time, it became unmistakably clear that these individuals possessed deep perceptual mastery. They were human instruments tuned to frequencies most people never noticed. But a lifetime of invalidation had buried their confidence beneath layers of self-doubt. They did not lack clarity. They lacked permission to trust what they already knew. Their transformation would begin the moment that permission returned. Over time, I realized that every individual with this heightened sensitivity reached a pivotal instant when accumulated observations could no longer stay buried. The psyche, pressured by years of self-denial, eventually reorganized itself around truth. Not dramatic truth, quiet truth. Truth that had lived inside them since childhood. Truth they had been trained to silence to preserve relationships that were never safe for them. I watched this shift unfold repeatedly. It began as a subtle withdrawal from roles they had inhabited for years. Their posture changed. Their speech slowed. Their eyes steadied with an unusual focus, as though something within them had aligned after a lifetime of distortion. Yet no turmoil appeared. No frantic despair. No emotional collapse. Instead, an unusual calm emerged, deeper than anything I had witnessed in traditional therapeutic awakenings. What made this calm so unsettling was its clarity. These individuals no longer questioned the discrepancies they had noticed in others. They stopped rationalizing the contradictions they had tolerated. They no longer softened the impact of another's cruelty or minimized the sting of exploitation. Their inner instrument, once overwhelmed by constant noise, began to operate with extraordinary precision. In this state, their perceptual abilities sharpened even further. They could identify a lie the moment it left someone's lips. They could sense hidden motives before a person revealed them through action. They recognized manipulation as easily as others recognized tone or expression. Their insight no longer frightened them. It guided them. But the most striking development was not perceptual mastery. It was the emergence of emotional autonomy. These individuals stopped absorbing destructive energy. They stopped internalizing burdens that were never theirs to carry. They stopped apologizing for identifying harmful behavior. For the first time, they recognized their right to interpret reality without external permission. With this recognition came an unshakable resolve. They ceased allowing others to define their narrative. They no longer attempted to soothe guilt that did not belong to them. They refused to bend themselves into shapes that protected dysfunctional patterns. They chose authenticity over approval, awareness over illusion, and inner alignment over external harmony. This psychological shift did not produce aggression. It produced balance. They confronted dishonesty with composed directness. They articulated long-buried insights without hostility. They pointed out patterns others wished to hide without hesitation. Their presence alone destabilized manipulative dynamics because deception could not survive near someone who saw with such accuracy. Although long conditioned to believe their sensitivity was a flaw, they discovered it was an instrument for discernment. When properly directed, this capacity allowed them to detect danger before damage occurred. Instead of collapsing under emotional overload, they learned to regulate their internal environment while observing external behavior with extraordinary depth. Through decades of records, I found that once this state emerged, it never reversed. Not once. These individuals continued refining their awareness, strengthening discernment, and expanding their emotional range without sacrificing their stability. They cultivated a form of compassionate strength that allowed them to care without self-erasure and to listen without surrendering their integrity. Their relationships changed accordingly. Those who once relied on them for constant emotional labor withdrew, unable to control someone who no longer absorbed their chaos. Meanwhile, healthier connections formed naturally. People aligned with authenticity gravitated toward their presence, sensing stability, clarity, and sincerity without needing explanation. This new psychological posture created an atmosphere that encouraged honesty. The individuals who experienced this transformation did not demand transparency, they inspired it. They embodied an inner equilibrium that made pretense uncomfortable for anyone who approached them with concealed motives. Their journey revealed something extraordinary about human development. Sensitivity, when guided by consciousness, becomes a form of power unmatched by force or domination. It becomes insight, foresight, and emotional sovereignty. It becomes the ability to respond without losing oneself, to care without collapsing, and to perceive without drowning in the weight of what is seen. This evolution demonstrated that their greatest suffering had always concealed a hidden competence. They were never fragile. They were finely tuned. And once they trusted their own perception, their lives shifted from survival to mastery. If you recognize yourself in this narrative, understand that your depth has purpose. Your intuition is not a liability. Your receptivity is not a defect. You are not weak for noticing the things others avoid. You are perceptive because the architecture of your mind was built for complexity most people never attempt to navigate. Your task is not to mute this gift, but to direct it. Not to shrink for others' comfort, but to stand with the clarity you have always carried. When your insight aligns with self-trust, you become impossible to manipulate and indispensable to anyone seeking genuine connection. Your transformation begins the moment you stop doubting what you already perceive. If this message resonated with you, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share a reflection or personal experience connected to this topic.